So I think the next job is to drain the oil and start cleaning up other bits, and obviously change the oil and the filter. And it's got this clever little device on it which stops it undoing, because you should never tighten the oil filter too much. So that's obviously, hopefully, just kind of hand tight, and that stops it from undoing. That's kind of neat. Just nudges up on that fin there on the motor, and it's just a screw. Okay, ready for the oil change. We're going to be draining into that bolt. Apparently there should be 3.5 litres in the bike. Don't know what that looks like in a bowl, so obviously we've got the customary emergency buckets. Normally have to take the fairing off, but we're quite a way in advance of that, as you can see. So got a bit of a head start, and we're on the left hand side of the bike, and the drain bolt is there. It's a 10mm Allen bolt, and normally you do this when the engine's warm because the oil will drain better, but obviously again that ain't gonna happen. And this is tight, so of course our trusty friend the hammer comes into play. So these sump plugs are often magnetized, so that they pick up all the crappy little bits of metal in the oil, and so that's going to need a little bit of cleaning up. And after I pulled that out and the oil started pouring out, there was another thud in the drip tray, and that was this little washer. Probably quite important, so I'm glad I rescued that. Turns out that's probably a 5 litre tray, or a gallon or something, I don't know. Anyway, it's still coming out. It's not the best oil I've seen, but it's certainly not the worst. It's still kind of goldy, even though it's a bit grubby, but I'm sure it was a good time to change it. Now it's time to tackle the filter, which I'm hoping is just going to be hand tight, because otherwise I'm not sure how I'm going to get in there with anything. I've already taken off this clever device that stopped it from unscrewing. Get that out. Yeah, remember that. So that's already off. It was indeed finger tight, and good job I had another little bucket, because that's still dripping over there. It'll probably reach both, but making a right mess of the exhaust pipes. Wouldn't want to do that with a hot engine. Of course, the Triumph does its own oil change on a 2-year cycle, simply by pissing it out on the floor and topping it up from the top. The reason I'm doing this way in advance of actually the filter and oil turning up at the weekend is give me time to get the stator cover off and clean that up, maybe paint it, a bit of it. The other side, I want to take this cover off, and I want to do something with that logo, and that might take a little bit longer, so we'll have to see, and I might even need a new gasket there. Of course, that was a bit tricky to lever off after I'd done the bolts, and of course, guess where it fell? Yeah, in the oil pan. So you can see it's pretty mashed up. It's going to take some cleaning up. Hashtag road rash. So the other side had an excuse because I dropped it, as you know. And so a couple of those bolts were knackered. But I've no reason at all why that one and that one are screwed up on this side, as far as I'm aware, but it's the usual 20% rule that you're going to be awkward. Always the mole grips come to the rescue. Now we're talking. There's the guts, and we are going to need a new gasket for this. And here's the residue. One of these blades, or a Stanley knife blade, or whatever, and just work away at that gently to get a good flat surface and get all the residue off. So I've covered that up with a plastic bag because I'm not quite sure how long it's going to be exposed, and I don't want dog hair and stuff like that getting in. Of course, the other half of the gasket that I'm going to have to clean up on the other side, the cover, As you can see, it's got this red stuff, which we use a lot. Gasket maker, we use it on the race car quite a lot, in addition to the gasket, just to seal any bits and pieces that might have, it looks fairly clean honestly, but you've got to be careful when you're taking it off with a blade, because this is aluminium. Always stumble with that word because aluminium, it's aluminium anyway. Yeah, obviously the steel can score it quite badly. That's why you have to be gentle with using those blades to clean it up. But then on the flip side, what I want to do here is paint this in the colours. And I've got different levels there, and I think I know how I'm going to attack that. But it might take a while, and then I'm going to have to clean up the rest of it around it, because I want to keep that silver, not going for the whole gold look. That would have been too much. So this might be off for a while I bugger about with that. Starting with some of that engine degreasing, foaming gel. Doesn't look very foamy, quite jelly. And then some of this, because that's bound to take the rest of the crap out. It's not great for skincare, and it kind of reminds me of my glue sniffing days, so it's probably not very good for you all round, but be careful with it. I know it doesn't look very well masked off, but trust me, I think I know what I'm doing. I may be wrong. It has been known before. So here's the theory. Get that bit levelish and then fill it with the first colour. And that would be the light blue. Let's give it a go. Yeah, not your normal paint job. That is swimming in blue paint. So I'm going to let it dry. Might take a day or so. Well, I think that turned out quite nicely after all. I was going to silver up the F4, but actually I kind of like it is. And there's a risk of screwing it all up if I try and sand the paint off that, so I like that. Meantime, over here, I've masked off the blue areas, I hope, with the aid of a scalpel and some masking tape, obviously. And I'm very gently putting on the white so that it doesn't drip anywhere it shouldn't, because despite the tape, I think there's a possibility that it'll leak, as tape does sometimes. So patience isn't my middle name, but it's going to have to be for this one, because I've just got to take it really gently and then leave it to dry a long time before I remove that tape and find out what a disaster it is. Who knows? Well, I know it looks like a right royal mess now, but actually it's kind of what I was hoping would happen. So we'll see once I sand it all down what it looks like, and then we can fill it with clear lacquer. Well, the blue came out quite well, honestly, but the white, unfortunately, when I sanded all the other stuff off, the white got pretty dirty, and that bit peeled out there of the V. So I think it's close enough. So what I want to do is try a paintbrush, good old-fashioned paintbrush. Gave up on the blue and white, just was never going to happen. So this is version 2, and I think it needs to, I've just thrown a load of paint in there, honestly. So we'll see what happens with that. I think it's going to need at least a day or two to dry, honestly, because that's kind of puddles of paint. Next big job is to drop the swing arm. I want to get that out. I want to get it painted, maybe powder coated, not quite sure yet. I know what my buddy Chuck would say, powder coating all the way, but I'm waiting for that manual to turn up before I tackle that, because it looks kind of serious, and when there's shock absorbers involved and springs and things, it can get messy, Although I'm figuring with a bike, I just need to jack it up and everything will drop down. It's not like a car where you have to clamp the springs up. And the only other guy that I know that's crazy enough to help me with that is my buddy Kurt, because we've done it plenty of times on race cars and stuff. No more t-shirts, by the way, because going straight from temperatures in the 90s, we suddenly hit the 50s. So yeah, no autumn to speak of, straight into winter. Thanks for watching again, and please make sure you subscribe to the channel, and there'll be plenty of updates coming soon.